There you are. And we are live. There we go. What's up? I'm
What's
with
going on?
James Lawrence of the Early 2000s BMX Instagram page. And to get right on into it, I just want to hear your backstory on that Instagram page. Because I kind of remember it like starting and seeing it at the beginning. And then I checked the follower count the other day and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, so funny story is with that, I actually started it way back in 2015,
What? I didn't
and
know that.
I didn't stay active the whole time. I actually started it kind of just like, you know, posting stuff that I was psyched on back in the day, and I started building a little bit of momentum. You know, I
Yeah.
actually took a break for a couple years, but I mean, just from that page, not from like being in BMX and stuff, but
Right.
I picked it up during COVID, the start of quarantine. It was like the perfect time, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody was out, nobody was traveling at the time, so it was easy to, nobody was really working. A lot of people weren't. So, like, it was kind of like a lot of people had a lot of time to spend on social media. So it kind of took off from there. Just earlier this year, I kind of got active on it again.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's kind of obvious, but but maybe you could talk
But
about
yeah,
the motivations for the page or what
yeah,
your
yeah.
goals are and stuff.
So totally, my motivations with the page really were I feel like a lot of that riding and stuff like that, like I was kind of listening to your podcast with Montana Ricky, and he made some good points. A lot of stuff's forgotten within a couple of days, even almost a couple of hours. Sometimes you see a
Hmm.
clip in the morning, and then somebody will post something else that night, and it just kind of goes from there. But a lot of stuff, especially the newer riders, they don't really know too much about the gnarly stuff that came before them. They assume BMX is at its best right now. In a lot of ways, it is, but there's stuff that dudes are doing, like Dave Osada was doing, Canadian nose pick on a, 10-foot tall fence, over 10 years ago. And dudes don't realize that stuff happened. So just kind of sharing that stuff, like from back in the day, that's just as gnarly as a lot of the stuff today. In a lot of cases, gnarlier. Obviously, I'm not saying it's better than today's riding. There's just differences, but
Hmm.
that was kind of my motivation, and there was a lot between like sharing those photos and videos that a lot of people would comment on certain things and be like, whoa, I didn't know dudes were doing front flips in 2000 and stuff. And people don't realize what came before the current era of BMX.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that was kind of the motivation right there.
I have a perfect example of that because when we went to Woodward, the guy that Jamie rides with all the time, Big Keith, had no
Yeah, he invented
idea.
the front flip player.
Exactly. I had no
Yeah.
idea. Like the first I remember ever seeing that was like Daniel Sandoval, and I had no idea that a dude who's 50 now invented that trick. Like,
Yep.
holy crap. So that's a perfect example of why like
And what's funny about him and his front flip flare is he actually was probably well into his 30s, almost 40s when he invented that trick. So he brought it out in the do tour. So it wasn't like he was doing those in the 90s or something. So the fact that he was progressing that late with a huge trick is super gnarly, because I actually went to Woodward as a camper around 15 or 16 one year, and he was trying to way back then, but that would have been like 2005. So really, that dude's 50. It wasn't like he was doing that trick in the 80s. It's still a relatively new trick. It actually happened at the Do Tour.
that is
So it's
wild.
still gnarly. Yeah. So it wasn't like that trick's been around forever. It hasn't. It's just that dude's older and he just still sends it. And he actually learned front flips from, I believe, from watching Zach Gerber do the new school front flips,
Hmm.
as I like to call it. Because there's a lot of debate, but Zach Gerber really was one of the first dudes where you pop off the lip.
Yeah.
And I think the story goes that Keith learned them from him, did one in the foam pit first try. After a while, it took him a few tries to get it again. And then he wanted to bring it. He's a vert rider, and he wanted to bring that trick to vert, and he spent a long time figuring it out. Actually, watching him at Woodward, when he was first trying them, he wasn't doing them how you see him today. He was almost airing out, and as he was coming in, he was front flipping into the foam pit. So he would like air out,
Jesus.
and then on his way. That's how I remember it. I'm pretty sure that's accurate, but it wasn't how he ended up doing it, where he almost the typical front flip flare. So
Yeah.
he was trying it. I think he was just trying it back then. He was just experimenting with it different ways.
You should post a video if there is one on the
There
page.
is. There's one of him doing the first ever one at Do Tour. He hangs up a little bit, but it just makes it that much gnarlier. It's
Jesus.
wild. Yeah, he won best trick. at I think it was Portland. I think that was the stop. Maybe like 2006. He might have brought that one to the table, and then shortly after, this is gonna be like a podcast just on front foot players, but no, Craig Mass started trying him after that and figured him out. But
Wow.
yeah, so Craig Mass brought him to park not too long after that.
So, okay, so we talked about that. I know you like you're on it with paying attention to comments and all that stuff. So like, have you noticed a clear distinction between like people that are obviously kids and obviously adults responding to these things? Or is it like an even mix? Like what do you notice?
You know what's really cool is like I made that page and it was like a lot of mid school dudes joining it, which is obviously like it's a mid school page, right? It's the
Mm,
early 2000s BMX, but then I think a lot of dudes started finding it. Younger kids started finding it,
yeah.
and they would be psyched on certain things, like I was saying earlier, that they didn't realize happened. So when I see certain comments, like dudes are like really freaking out about something, like I forget what I posted. It was like, well, I'll use the Matt Berenger reference. Like he did a backflip to front flip at like a KOD contest on the beach, and some kids were commenting like people were doing front flips back then, and like again, so you could tell the difference. There's definitely dudes that you can tell that would be like referencing everything from like the sprocket he was riding to like, oh man, the tire setup, in certain posts. But then you get kids that are just like, because I think a lot of it shows up in the explore page, so
Yeah.
kids are finding it. So kids will find certain things and they'll just see like a highlight of a kid. A 14-year-old kid's not going to know who Van Homan is, but he's going to see this gnarly Van Homan gap derail that shows up in the explore page, and then to them it doesn't matter if it's new or old. They're just like, that's wild. So then you get that new school, which is, I think, is sick. It's kind of like cool to have those kids on the page because you know they're getting to see kind of where everything came from and what came before and respect it, and it's cool.
Yeah, that's why it's so important for pages like that and Y2K BMX and mid school
Yeah.
BMX and real BMX and all these
Yeah, I love all those
pages.
pages. Snakebite, BMX. Yeah,
Yeah,
great pages for sure.
there's a bunch of them out there, and I didn't realize how much of a following. Like I know that there's a couple of them that have a pretty big following, and then I see yours is growing pretty good, and it's like I don't know, it's everybody talks about how there needs to be like education, and that's kind of like I feel like how.
You're, uh,
Oh, he froze. Could you hear anything I said? Oh no, he's frozen. James, are you there?
uh,
Oh, I heard you. Are you good? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? There he is. Okay. Did you? How much of that did you miss? Oh, you were there.
I missed a lot. You're cutting out. All right, are we back?
Yeah, I was just saying how a lot of people talk about how there needs to be education for what like came before in BMX, and I think that pages like that on Instagram are like the perfect way because like if there was a YouTube channel dedicated to that, yeah, I'm sure people would watch it. I'm sure it would get a little bit of following, but I don't think it would be anywhere near what it on Instagram is gonna be.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, and it's again, and the explore page helps that, and it's a cool mix. Another really cool thing about it is there's dudes that like will message. I'm sure all those pages get the same messages, similar messages, but they're like, dude, honestly, I haven't touched my bike in 12 years, but like seeing that Taj like day in the life, like, dude, I just like made an order with Empire. I got a T1 on the way. Like, I'm gonna get back into it, and it's like sick to hear that. Like some dudes. So you get those dudes too that like hadn't ridden, and then they see like a Ruben video or something. They're like, dude, this is like giving me goosebumps. Like I had that VHS. My mom threw it out when I went to college, and like forgot all about it. Now I'm seeing it right here, and it's like, dude, I'm like gonna get a bike together, go buy a complete. So it's like that's pretty sick. I think it's cool like to hear that type of stuff too.
Absolutely. I see it a lot on my channel with stuff, and it's really motivating to keep going with it. Like so when you're posting things, I mean obviously I feel like it's probably gotten to a point where you're talking to people all the time about this stuff, so things come
Uh,
up. But like how often is it just like you remembering something cool and you're like, "Oh, I'll post that."
it is a mix. There's certain times where I'm like, all right, dude, like I remember like Aiken doing a pegless ice pick at Metro Jam in 2002 to Fakey, and like I'm gonna find the clip, or like I remember a video, and I'm watching this stuff anyway because I'm an avid, this is my life too. I love
Mm-hmm.
BMX and everything, so it's like I'll find these clips, or sometimes I'll think of a clip and I'm like, dude, that's got to be posted. But then there's other times where dudes are tagging me and stuff, or sending me stuff too, and I'll filter through that a lot too. And it's really mostly stuff that I'm seeking out and finding, but it's a mix. Like, and sometimes like get a dude like, we'll say like Mike give me a post, a throwback post, and I'll post that. Or Colin McKay recently uploaded a bunch of tapes from his camera from back in the early 2000s to
Oh
his
man.
computer. So I'll like post that stuff too, like stuff that dudes are like throwback stuff and everything. It's kind of like archiving it and reposting it too. And I'll even post current clips, because I was thinking about this today. It's like early 2000s BMX is a time, but it's also kind of like BMX in a sense. It's not really just a time, but it's like a lifestyle in a sense. And like certain clips that are relevant with like that style of riding, like Joey that spinning on his back wheel doing 1080 tail taps and everything, like stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And like I post stuff like that because I know that dudes will appreciate it that follow the page, because it's like it's very reminiscent. And this one dude posted a clip of a gnarly tail whip gap to feeble, and that's a trick you don't see maybe if you watch old props. So I was like,
Yeah.
dude, and it's a recent clip, but anything like that, I just feel like it's kind of like, I love current BMX and I love all BMX, but I feel like that era is more than just a time period. It's also kind of a style of riding in its own, with, from brake tricks, and some of that stuff's still around, obviously, but it's like, it's like arguably that it's like also like its own niche in BMX.
Haircuts, tricks, bikes.
Yeah, yeah, the
I'm
jeans,
living it, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I definitely agree. It's a lifestyle to like, I don't know. I feel like I found exactly what I liked, and I'm just gonna stick with it, and it's awesome. And I just love the fact that it's doing so well. It shows that people care, you
Well,
know?
yeah, and you were the first person I did an interview with actually for the page, and
I
obviously you
didn't know
remember
that.
that, but yeah, you were the first, and it was like, speaking of dudes that are relevant with that style. Well, a lot of dudes say current BMX lacks originality, and I don't agree with that 100%. But you have a very unique style, and like you're in the sub rail hitching post and all that stuff, and it's like I knew that dudes from this era would appreciate what you're bringing to the table. So I was like, it's perfect, because it's like you're still living it. I'm not saying you're not trying to you're not trying to like emulate it 100%. You're doing your own thing, but it's
Mm.
like, I thought it was, perfect for for the theme of the page, just talk to somebody that's still out there doing, lip tricks. You're in the parks. I saw you post something like, man, you need more cage style parks. This thing that when you saw Morgan Wade's park, right? That he
Mm-hmm.
just built. Yeah. So I was like, stuff like that. You're into riding sub boxes. You're into riding, nothing gets plaza parks and stuff, but it's like, so I was like, you're still riding. You're into this type of riding. So like similar stuff. So it's just
Yeah,
another point saying like what's relevant, and showing there's still creativity in BMX.
I appreciate it. I think some of it, I don't want to get in industry talk, but I feel like some of it has been dictated by what is deemed cool. So
Yeah,
like
that happens.
so the fact that these pages exist and are growing and are giving somewhat of an alternative, or not an alternative, but something that exists at the exact same time, and exposing people to like everything instead of just what the industry is promoting at the time, is going to help with the creativity and all of that stuff even more.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about social media too, is there's no obviously gatekeepers anymore, because anybody can essentially. So it's like, why not? Like stuff that wouldn't traditionally maybe get coverage in magazines. Well, the magazines now are all on the same platforms as anybody else. So it's like you can highlight what you want, and if people aren't into it, they don't have to follow it. And
Yep.
I respect all kinds of BMX, and that whole era. Even racing was a huge part of the early 2000s. Everything in magazines are being racing on one page, flatland on the other. So I try to cover everything on there, because that's kind of like to be authentic with early 2000s BMX riding. It was just kind of a mix. You'd have dudes that would be on the race bike at the skate park and
Mm-hmm.
whatever else, So I just always thought that was cool that there's so much different styles of riding, obviously within one sport. So many things you can do.
Yeah, dude, you do a really really good job with it.
I appreciate it, man.
Like just the variety of what gets posted, the variety of people that are being posted on there. It's like you can tell that you're putting work into doing what you're doing with it and being conscious and not just like it's clear that you don't have like an agenda, you know? You're just
Yeah,
doing it because you love that time period, you love what happened, and you just want to promote it. And it's very, very, very clear that that's the case.
yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, for sure. And another thing is, it's like, so I interviewed, I was interviewing riders to start interviewing you.
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed several, pros and stuff, but I'll even interview, I'll go live with a collector because there's a lot of ways to enjoy BMX.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I talked to a dude that, his affiliation with BMX is collecting vintage BMX t-shirts, and he probably, he still rides, but that's his thing is collecting, the Kink t-shirts from 1995 to 2001 to
That's
finding
so
a standard
good.
t-shirt, and that's his thing, and that's what he does. He searches eBay and all these things, and he's still a part of BMX that way. And it's like, I'll interview collectors. Everybody's got a story. It's crazy. Like I went and live with this dude from where was he from? Bali or something crazy. He had one of the biggest Haro collections I've ever seen. And
That's
him
so
and his
cool.
friend running a bike shop, and they go to the back of the shop. Dude, there's Haro back trails from 2000, Miras, like brand new, used, you name it. Like they're sending them out. They're huge Haro collectors, dude. Like everything you can imagine Haro, and they're from southern, Southeast Asia, and it's just crazy to see, man. And I love talking to the collectors, and there's dudes that collect. You got a guy that's just in the Schwinn, you got a guy that's just in the specialized, you got so you can niche down to whatever you want, and it's just crazy. There's so many ways to be a part of BMX culture. Like it's nuts, man.
Yeah, I had no idea it was that wild. I didn't watch the video, but I saw you did like a live like unboxing or something.
Yeah. Well, I watch. I've kind of always worked in like around clothes and fashion and stuff at just like different levels, like retail levels, or like I work for a sales rep for Quicksilver and stuff. So I've always been into shoes and clothes, and they always do these videos on YouTube. They're like shoe unboxing or
Yeah.
something like that. Like, and I was like, you know what? Why don't we just do a frame unboxing? Why not? And
Mm-hmm.
it was sick.
That is that's cool to see. It just shows like it's just limitless. You just the idea of getting collectors and I know I've seen all those things with like this guy's whatever collection or whatever they're like psyched on and it's just it's I appreciate it pretty much. It's a good way to say it.
Yeah, no, it's cool, and yeah, it's cool to give. It's like, were those dudes going to get a spotlight in the magazines? Not necessarily, but like, we're in 2020, 21, and it's like those dudes have sick things to say. They got sick stories, and they got amazing collections. This one dude jumped on my live one night, and he just had a frame that Matt Hoffman actually rode the last year he retired from X Games Big Air, and somehow he got it on eBay, and it was just like these people come out of the woodwork, man, and it's awesome because everybody has these sick stories,
Yeah,
about their
no,
parts or their products. Or some people just jump on and they just talk BMX in general. So it's cool.
that's super rad. I feel like there's a lot of people out there who have an affinity for that time period.
Yeah, it's sick.
What's your experience of that time period? Because I know, okay, I don't know. Are you from Ohio?
Yeah, born and raised, and then I moved to California like 7 years ago. But I mean, up until then, up until pretty much the Flow skate park closed in Columbus, I was in Ohio. I left once that year the park closed.
Yeah, I was gonna point
Yeah.
out the shirt. So what was it like being around in Ohio at like the peak when it was BMX was in Ohio?
Man, it's crazy because as you lived there for a little bit in Columbus, and you had your street guys. You were riding street with Stephen Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
So you had campus, OSU campus was a mecca for street riding. We had the curve wall ride, we had all these things. So all these guys were coming through on trips. Road Fools came through. You had Ian Shorts, you had Stephen Hamilton. It was just like that scene. You could go ride street at night. So I was always at the Flow as a kid before I worked there. I was, a middle school kid hanging out, and it just escalated from taking the trash out to working the counter to working rentals to even opening up the park sometimes for like Ryan Nyquist and Josh Harrington and Ty Morrow to come through and film End Search. And like, it's crazy, man. Like, I don't even want to say it to brag or anything, but the stuff I got to do, like, just like being around that park was amazing. We had, one night I was open all night for Road Fools Rock and Roll Tour so they can get clips after the tour. I stayed the entire night so Scotty Kramer can film, and Aiken and Chase Hawk and Diego and all those dudes, man. It was like so many times, I mean, and then to being around like that, because the Flow was voted the #1 indoor skate park in America at one point by Transworld, and it was the spot.
Yeah, I mean the
And
Flow and Changa were like,
in Changa
and
and Section
Section
8.
8 were all
Yep.
like it. Like Ohio was like how Long or California and Austin are like kind of like the meccas of BMX right now. I feel like Ohio was like it there for a
Oh,
little
it
bit.
was. You had Quinn Simling and Catfish, and then you had the Indiana guys. We had 9-year-old Mad Dog
Mm-hmm.
backflipping the spine at 9 years old, turn down backflipping the spine at 9 years old. Chris Gerber would come through. We had the Indiana guys coming down. We had the Cincinnati crew come in, with there's like Joey Hill and all these shredders. You had PA guys like Glenn Johnson, Doyle would be in that crew, all those dudes. And then you would have Greenville guys, because this was before Mira's Warehouse, right around before all that, and Nyquist's warehouse. So you'd have Harrington, Nyquist would be there, Shay Nyquist, his brother. You'd have Jeremy Fanberg coming through. All these mid school Greenville OGs would come through, and then you had there's all these. It was like a melting pot for scenes. Like any given Friday at the Flow, like in the heyday, there would be pros on the deck. It would be like it'd be unreal, man. Like the sessions that would go down, and we had Shanton Wilson, who was like the hometown hero, and he
Mm-hmm.
was riding for FBM, and Craig from the Flow, dude. Craig, the owner of the Flow, was riding S&M. He's getting hooked up by them, and he was killing it. And Jut still kills it on those dudes. And like, it was just like a melting pot for BMX. And Jamie Bestwick put on a contest at the Flow 2 years in a row called the Good Times Contest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was like Morgan Wade and all these dudes coming through, and then Alan Cook did the local exposure tour. So being in Ohio around that time, long story short, was like the place to be. So it was firsthand getting to see BMX history in a sense. It was
That
just
is
wild.
that is rad because I didn't even start riding until that was like closing out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Man, I can't even imagine like being at those contests that went down there. I mean, there's some legendary stuff and contests that happened there at the Flow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in Ohio contests in general, and it was sick, man. And then we had the second Flow and all those Dirty East contests, which were started the original Flows. Those are rad. And I actually put on a contest called the King of Rhythm.
Yup.
I did that 2 years in a row, and that was like rhythm section only contest, and that was kind of cool. Shout out to Cody Clary from Downtown Cycles. He helped me get that together. We got a ton of sponsors and put that on. So it was like a dirt jumping contest essentially, but it was a really,
Yeah, I
that
rode
was
in
cool
one
to
of
organize
those.
that. And I remember,
That
yeah.
was that
So it
was
was cool to
way
see.
back in the day.
Yeah, it's going on like what 2000. That was like 2010.
Yeah, that was the first year I was in school down there.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Dude,
crazy.
one of those parks, there's people in here reminiscing about Changa 1 and the Flow. I I would definitely love to go and ride the Flow 2, like
Oh
again.
God, yeah, man. I think about it all the time.
I can't even imagine because I only ever got to go there a couple times. I was,
Yeah, no, it was great. And also,
what's up?
go on. You're good. No,
You're
what were you
fine.
saying?
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So you were coming up around. There was still a good BMX scene when you moved there. You said it was around
Mm-hmm.
2010. Yeah, so that was around the time like Zach Gerber. Well, he was, and Charlie Bowers and all those dudes too. They were coming out of the woodwork, and like we had yeah. So it was pretty crazy. You were around like kind of a different part of the scene. It was like, I don't know if it was Flow 2 was a sick scene, don't get me wrong, but Flow 1 I feel like was like the heyday of Midwest BMX.
Yeah, I never got to that in Changa 1. I never got to
Changa 1,
experience.
yeah. You know, obviously Chango won in Section 8 too. I mean, and you know, yeah, Cuesta, I don't want to leave him out, and the Napolitan brothers and Craig Mass, all those dudes coming up. So it was really cool to see. And shout out to Nick Smith,
Yeah, Nick
another flow
Smith too.
shredder.
Best wall slaps in BMX.
Yeah, I've always thought that. That's funny that you say that too. It's official. No, it is. It's
It's
definitely a
true,
fact.
dude.
He like
Nobody
mangles
else.
on the wall almost and stats.
Yeah, like straight up and down. Yep. Uh, so have you experienced anything that's come close to like the feeling of the way things were back then for you?
You know, I chase it like a drug in a way of like it's true. Like, you know, I went to a simple session, and that was like that, you know, because I was like, I moved to California, flow's been closed, stuff is going. So I was like, I needed to get my fix like on BMX. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I started going to BMX events. Like I went to Feast in China, simple session and stuff like that. Like, and it was like sick to be around like that atmosphere again at like such a high level because it's like you kind of like people say they get a high like going to a certain concert, just being in that atmosphere. It's like
Yeah.
those contests, dude. Like this being even if you're just watching the pro contests and stuff, like just like that atmosphere and stuff, it's just unreal. So it's like, you know, I love being around BMX in general. So it's like I'd always make it a point to like still to this day living in California and stuff before COVID, I would go to various BMX things, even in Southern California
Yeah.
and wherever I can go, you know.
But was
So no,
there?
I wouldn't say yeah, I mean nothing's gonna replace it, but it's like yeah, I definitely have had, you know, good experiences within BMX since then,
Yeah.
obviously.
I just was curious as to what you might have like has happened that you've been at that kind of gave you the same vibe.
I would say simple session the last year that Drew Bezanson won. So I was in the athlete like tower judging tower thing, just
Mm-hmm.
hanging out, and he walks. I was just hanging out, and there was like all the judges, and Drew Bezanson goes up to the judges, and they like move, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And there's like rickety crowd railing, and Drew Bezanson's
I
on it. And
remember
if you're
that.
just balancing on the railing, if it was on the ground, it'd be kind of sketchy to balance on one of those. He's standing over like a 20-foot drop, holding his bike, and he looks back and he says, "I've never done this before." And he hops off like a caveman drop to bar spin, and it is not like a straight drop. It's into this fucking vert wall at an angle, and it was just like lit up, and it was one of the craziest things I've ever fucking seen in person. And the fact that he like stood on that rickety railing and just jumping off of that was fucking gnarly. And all those judges were just like floored, dude. And everybody was just like, oh my God. And like after just seeing that, it's just like, dude, that's why our sport is just so fucking nuts because like you don't even have to use the course in a
Yeah.
contest essentially. That's definitely like, dude, that thing was probably held together by zip ties for all I know, dude.
Yeah, you definitely used to be able to count on simple session for something like insane like that to
Yeah.
happen.
Oh God, yeah.
Pretty much every year there's some kind of wall ride that was the fence for the spectators that was 20 foot up or the railing that somebody would foofanoo that's 15 feet out of the quarter pipe every
Oh
year
God, yeah.
before they split it up into park and street. It was
Street and park. I was kind of bummed when they did that because it was like you'd see like Kyle Baldock going, and then it's like, you know, you'd have like Devin Smiley like next. So it was like sick to see that. And it reminded me of the old Metro contest because they would do that at Metro Jam, and Roots Jam would have like Edwin De La Rosa in the one heat, and then the Corey Nastasio. So it's like I liked that mix. I think they just had issues with judging because it was like, how are you going to judge this dude doing this hard crank arm slide, the hard 180 to like, you know, to this guy doing a decade 720 over the box. It's like they had judging issues. Is what it came down to, I think.
Hey, you
So
know, I mean, if it's your job to judge and you're a pro judge, you should be able to do it, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree, and I know some of the riders from the contest definitely had their opinions about it too. So it's like, you know, not being a rider in the contest, it's like they're the ones that should have the opinion, obviously. But it's like you're right. You should be able to judge like because a lot of those judges you would be a park guy and you have like a street guy. So it's like you know they should be able to figure it out. Like, is this crook to 180 bar better than this 720 whip that Kyle Baldock did over the box like
Yeah.
mid run? Yeah, so I get it. For sure. But yeah, I definitely personally liked when there was like the mix. But now
Yeah.
how they run the heats, it would be like a street heat, park heat, street heat, park heat. So it still feels like it's going on at the same time. But I liked it. It was like it reminded me of the UFC of BMX where you have like a karate guy versus like taekwondo guy versus
Mm-hmm.
maybe a boxer or something. So it was like I like seeing the variety of styles because there would be like you know, Mateus the flat for Haro, he did a run against, you know, he was in the same heat as like
I
Colton Walker, and he
remember.
was like him started doing flatland in the
Yep.
middle of a run, and it was like this is fucking so super sick. And he was incorporating street elements. He wasn't just like doing flatland, but it was like, I love that shit, dude.
Yeah, dude, they should
That
they
the
should just
mix up
like
between that.
keep them together but judge them separately. Like keep it all together, but then okay, if somebody's doing park stuff, they're judged by this criteria, and then just put the best people. Just if you have this number,
Yeah,
this dude got 97 in street, this dude got 97 in park. Okay, they both make it into finals, and then it's still people, but it's like
yeah, I agree. Yeah, and then there's a gray area though. There's like Larry Egger. He was doing in practice
true.
just up rail to double whips. Almost he was landing one foot on the floor, but he was just doing it messing around. So it was like Larry Egger was blasting the box a quarter higher than everybody, but still he could have entered. It was before they had the street contest separately, but the stuff he was doing was capable of hanging in the street contest. So it's like you get these gray areas, but I also like when you get a freestyle guy and he's like not a freestyle guy but like a park guy, and then he's riding the street riders, maybe he'll get extra points if he hits the rail. So it's
Yeah.
like getting them out of their comfort zone. Maybe the park rider might have to do a dip three, like Dan Lacey, he's good for a nosedive three over a box.
Oh yeah.
So it's cool to see that too, because it's like not only the street guys doing street stuff, but it's like, hey, have the street guy go over for his run, maybe do something on the spine, like a toothpick, something over the spine. Like it was cool to see like that mix up of them being like getting out of their comfort zone a little bit. So
Yeah, I can remember. I forget who it was, but there was one of the street riders who would do whatever year they had a double coping spine. In his run, he would do an over tooth back over both times in his run. But he's like a street dude. I just can't remember who it was.
yeah, that's the stuff I would love seeing, because those dudes can definitely ride boxes, dude. And it's like even Kyle Baldock and stuff. I've seen him. Like the year he was there, because I went 2 years in a row, and all those dudes can hang on. With street stuff, they're good for a downside whip transfer over the wedge section over a rail. Like they can definitely mix it up in the street side of the park. So the reason I think it's cool is because I don't want to see guys get segregated to like the box jump side of the park. And
Right.
Nate Wessel does a great job of integrating when he designs his courses. He does a great job of mixing it up to where they all kind of flow into each other, where there might be like a box jump over like a pyramid with a rail going across it. So it's like you're kind of not so super segregated. So I thought that was cool.
Just wanted to feel like Metro Jam, right?
Yeah, in a sense, definitely. So
Did you what's up?
I'm sorry, go on.
I was just gonna
You can go
ask
ahead.
if you were like part of the Ohio crews that would go up to Metro Jam.
No, actually, I was a little young. I think I was under 18. And then I knew a lot of the students would go up there because you can drink at 18 in Canada at the time and stuff. But I would have probably been allowed to go. I just never went. And it was one of those things you didn't realize was ever going to end. Being the naive 16-year-old, I thought, you take stuff for granted. You're like, I'll just go next year. But it's like, dude, BMX, you don't know. Look at Swamp Fest. Not saying it's not going to happen again. It definitely will. But like, you don't know if something's going to happen again. Like, Texas Toast ended up being a 2 or 3 year deal. So it's like, if there's an event BMX you're psyched on, get to it this year or the next year, because you don't know. There's no guarantee it's going to, well, not counting COVID, by the way, that's a whole nother story, but you don't know if it's going to be around. So at the time, I probably thought there'd be a Metro Jam forever, but so I probably didn't prioritize going up there.
I feel like there's always going to be something that's like Metro Jam in like vibe and like what happens, like how you had Texas Toast and Swamp Fest, Battle of Hastings. Like I feel like
Battle of Hastings is a good one.
There's always going to be that one thing that people like latch onto the same way, and then people just absolutely go and send it, and it's not like a formatted, like I guess Battle of Hastings is formatted, but even so, the Bowl Jam is definitely where people are just sending it like it was like that.
And you got to have a format. Even with Dirty East, we had to have somewhat of a format, because you got to run an event. It can't go 20 hours, So it's like you got to be like, all right, guys, like last tricks, this is serious. Or like dudes that over practice, they would be like practicing until almost the first heat. So it's like I've seen it firsthand. You have to make a contest move along to get everybody's runs in, and there's a lot of work on the back end with judging and all that stuff. Like so I get why they have to have a format, and especially a lot of the live feeds now. Like Simple Sessions started doing live feeds, so they took out, I think, like the best trick at the end of the run deal, which might have killed the vibe for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I could be wrong for that, but like, but I will say I went to Feast, and a lot of people hate on it. They watch it on the internet and they think it's not really bad at all. Like, Feast is actually super sick. Those dudes are having fun, man. They really are, and the camaraderie is awesome, and they're finding lines and they're having fun. And it's like, it's still like a super sick contest, and it's so international that that's also cool. So it's like, I guess from if you're just watching highlight videos and you see all the Olympic stuff, like on top of it all, you're just assuming that it's like going to like a soccer game or I don't know, a track and field event, but it's
Uh-huh.
really not. It is obviously gotten more organized since the UCI has got involved, but even those contests, man, it's still BMX. So
Yeah, I feel like at least in my eyes, the thing with those would just be the fact that in order to do well at that, you either have to fit the mold or be so damn good and consistent at what you're
oh
doing. Like,
yeah,
or basically you have to fit the mold or be Boyd Hilder or Dennis Anderson.
yeah, Dennis Anderson, he you know he started riding park events when he almost like qualified into to the Olympics. Like he was just like coming back up and hanging with Logan Martin like after not riding park events for a couple of years. But he's Dennis Anderson. But I get that there's like you're not gonna get the creativity of like the diversity I should say because there is creativity within modern day park riding, but it's like, yeah, I get it. I'm not saying it's like the same thing as a Metro Jam. I'm just
Right.
giving it credit for what it is. It
I
is still
gotcha.
a BMX event, and you know, even going over to China, they have like crazy rules where Americans can't stay in certain hotels. You have to be like in a designated hotel, and of
Huh.
course, I booked a hotel through a website that didn't say that. So I take the sketchiest chat after a bunch of layovers. Take the sketchiest taxi ever. I don't even think it was really a taxi to the hotel, and I get there and the lady starts like getting angry. It was like 2 in the morning, and I'm in the middle of this city in China, and she's like, and I have the translator app on my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy behind me is like, "Oh, you can't stay here because you're American." And I'm like, "Oh fuck!" I'm in the middle of China, like in the middle of the night in the city. You can't stay at a hotel. So I go outside and there's a group of BMXers, right? And I'm like, "Oh, this is an international contest. These dudes might be from like wherever."
Yeah.
And they're all local Chinese riders, and none of them speak English. But I say BMX, and they all say BMX, 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 and then they like one of them goes and gets their buddy, and he comes in like 15 minutes later. He comes riding up, and he's like, "Oh, I speak some English or whatever." And he runs a BMX shop, and he's like, I can help you get into a hotel. And I was just like, just because I said the word BMX to a group of riders at 2:30 a.m. in China, and I have video of it too. It was a sick night, but it was like, dude, that's like why I love this sport because it's like I couldn't say any other word to these guys, but the fact that they picked up on one word and they knew I was trying to communicate, they get their buddy that can speak English because he talks to U.S. distributors for his shop, so he helped me find a hotel that I could stay at. So that's just like a cool story within what BMX is about, kind of in a sense.
Well, just like what else, what other, like thing that exists, that could you do that with easily? Like
Yeah,
it's not easy to do that. That's like incredible.
yeah. No, that's what I'm just saying. Like it's unreal, and like that's the cool thing about this sport. And people think that's dead in the sport, and you know it might be to a certain extent, but it still exists, and there's still a camaraderie. And you see that when you travel, especially those dudes like other countries are more psyched on BMX because the U.S. we tend to take it for granted probably overall a
Hmm.
little bit more. Where they get those one event a year, and that's to them it's like the biggest thing ever. And another thing is too, comparing it to other sports, you see guys like, you know, maybe sprain their ankle in team sports. And I'm not hating on those guys. They're phenomenal athletes. Or I'm not. They're
I
phenomenal
know.
athletes and they train super hard. But I watched Kyle Baldock kill it at simple session, right? And he 360, he did this amazing run. And this box is gnarly. He 360s it backwards, just like mid run. And then the next run, he does it again. But he tags his wheel a little bit, right? And the box is like almost 8 feet tall and he goes straight to his head, right? And he's out, like out, out. It was like scary. This is like only a few years after Mad Dog's wreck and stuff. So
Yeah.
people were kind of like all the riders were like kind of freaking out because Kyle Baldock, like he hit his head like just point blank on the floor, knocked the fuck out. But he qualified first. So I heard the judges talking about it. And then one of the organizers of Simple Session and one of the riders is like, because he was in the hospital. Kyle Baldock was in the hospital after that. And they're
Yeah.
like, dude, take him to don't take him out of finals because if he sees he qualifies first, he will be here tomorrow morning for practice because they know like what other sport is a dude gonna get knocked out, taken out on a stretcher, and then they're worried about him showing up for the practice the next day because they know he would. Because like that's just super crazy to me. You know what I mean? It
Probably
was just like
not
they're like
probably not
many.
any other organized sport. I mean, the only thing that
Yeah,
comes to
I mean
mind,
fighting or
UFC.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
UFC.
yeah, those dudes are gnarly. But it's just the fact that like he pretty much fell off a ladder to his head, and they were like scratch his name off because they were debating on keeping him in finals. But then they're like, dude, he's gonna show up and ride. Like you don't want that because he had a gnarly head injury, and this is like the time that BMX is really seeing the head injuries weren't to be taken lightly. So it was like
Yeah.
but and the fact that Kyle Boddock would have showed up, probably won the contest the way he was riding that day. So it was like, just shows you like how, I don't know, how gnarly the sport is. And a lot of people love that about the early 2000s, because they look at these dudes as being the gladiators of the sport, in a sense, just sending it straight to a box or dirt to a mattress, you know?
No doubt about that. And that actually just brought a really, really awesome thing up in my mind. It all comes from, I know you've seen the video, Love Cinema, Another
Oh yeah,
Perspective. Are
I
you
love
in
that.
it?
Nick Couts, shout it. I'm not. That's like his, another perspective is like his, like, why he appreciates BMX and like explaining it to like an
Yeah.
outsider
I
authentically.
grew up.
Because
That's
when he
like
made that
it.
video, yeah, he nailed it. Because when he made that video, your outsider was seeing a Mountain Dew commercial as what BMX is. You know,
Hmm.
they weren't getting, or they're getting like the MTV version when they interview a guy and he's like, "Oh, I'm really psyched to make finals and blah blah blah." And it's like, no, like you don't see like why dudes on your college campus that's in your class might be riding BMX around. Like, and Nick really nailed that. They're like, if you were to ever show somebody why you ride BMX, that nails it, and it's a timeless video, so it'd still be just as relevant today, you know?
Absolutely. And if anyone has no idea what we're talking about, just type on YouTube Another Perspective BMX and click on the one from Love Cinema. Who knows how many views it's got? I'm just gonna do it right now, and put it on the screen
You know
because
who was really,
what's
you know
that?
who was really psyched on that video? Ricardo Laguna was psyched on the video. You know who he is? He rode for DK, Mexican dirt jumper out of Vegas, and he's a big contest guy, and he's a huge fan of that video. So it's kind of cool. Like a lot of dudes from all aspects of the sport were into that video, not just like the street guys or whatever.
That is awesome. So I can't. It's not the Love Cinema one's not showing up.
You try it on Vimeo. It's on Vimeo or Vimeo.
I
It's not on
mean,
YouTube, is it? Yeah,
there
it's on
is a
Vimeo.
version of it on YouTube, but it's like stolen Daniel Silvano. That's the
Okay.
version apparently I've seen because it's from 2007.
Yeah, I saw Nick's original version that he posted.
Well,
Nick
here
Houts
here it
on
is on
Vimeo.
YouTube for anyone who might want to check this out because you should probably watch it if you haven't yet. It's like that video, dude, I'm telling you, like that video, the Dirty East video from 2006, and then Scotty Kramer's felt videos with the concrete
Felt,
park and the
yeah,
flare five taps and stuff.
to turn down. Yeah,
Yep, those are the only videos that I really remember watching growing up, and like the fact that I got to a point where I ended up finding out like Nick Smith has the Ender clip in that video, and I'm like riding with him when we find that out, and I'm like, oh my god, like that's
yeah,
it for me, like that was it.
yeah. Hell yeah, dude.
And then just meeting all of the people, not all of the people, but most of the people from the Dirty East video and like becoming friends with them and stuff is like, man, it's so cool.
Yeah, no, it's rad. It's, that's another cool thing about being in the riding scene, is you're not getting to do that as a kid if you're into the NBA or something like that. But within BMX, it's all right there. You can meet,
Yup.
your heroes or people you look up to.
Yeah, dude, that's
Just go to Rays, you'll find, anything. It's like you don't get that opportunity in sports with these kids. And, Nathan Williams could be there, or Aaron Ross, or, Doyle, or, just a name, random throwing out names. But like, you don't get that with like a lot of sports, there's so much like isolation between people and like their followers or their fans or just other
mm-hmm.
participants.
Yeah, it's part of what makes it so awesome. And not many other sports do you have people in the sport like the Doyle of basketball isn't like
Yeah.
psyched to go to I mean he might be. He might go to a random basketball court and play with random people, but like that's not what he does to practice, like the
Yeah.
normal BMX rider goes to the skate park or rides street to keep up like and just do what they love doing and like stay good at it, I guess you could say. And that's not how other sports
Exactly.
work.
No, totally. You're totally right. And it's like, not to mention you catch so many shredders like that are just so good when you go to those sessions too that like you never even heard of, and you're like, who is this dude blasting to the moon? So you just realize there's, I don't know, man. There's always somebody new coming up, and it's like cool. Like you get to ride with, like as a kid, you get to ride with. Like I remember at the Flow, Alan Cook's there one day, and it's like you just saw him on ESPN the week before. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
cool, like as a kid, because you're like, this is like being inside of a BMX magazine. Where I guess being in that scene, I was fortunate, but you, like you said, and you're not.
Say that one
Whereas,
more time.
Chris Doyle, you might catch a session with him. Oh, like your analogy with basketball, like you're not going to go play a pickup game with LeBron James, but you can get in on like a rhythm train at Rays with Chris Doyle or any of those dudes. It's like that's what's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, at the wheel mill, Doyle and I did foofs on the hitching post back to back. Like, never
Nice.
ever. What? You cut out whenever
That was
you.
dope. I saw that video.
Thanks. I'm gonna
Oh,
post
I
that
saw that
again.
video. I said, yeah.
I'm gonna post that on Friday. Anyway,
Dope.
yeah, and I guess that
Yeah,
kind of brings me back to the Instagram page because the fact
yeah.
that
We got a little
pages,
off track there.
well, it's all we're talking about the topic though. Uh, but it like the fact that the page exists and other pages like it exist whenever there wasn't really an outlet like that before means that now kids can see this stuff and want to do it again rather than just
Yeah,
only seeing what BMX mainstream in the industry pushes. Now they get to see that and be like, oh, I want to go and maybe I'll learn how to do a 360 hang five on a spine to 180, like,
or throw a double bar without doing the bus driver because they're like, whoa, people just let them fly, and it's like people. Yeah, so it is cool to think about that. Like, the more like the younger generation sees these pages, the more that they might be inspired to like go out and learn that trick that they didn't even have knowledge of ahead of time, like you said, because they're, and RBMX does a great job about posting everything. I feel like they throw a lot of good throwback stuff, but like, yeah, there's a lot of street, and that's sick, and that's what the majority of BMX is into. But it's cool for everybody to get like you're saying, a well-rounded perspective on
yep.
everything.
Yeah, they have a really tough job having
Oh
to
God, yeah.
do all of it. So like you can't expect it to be like everything and be a very perfect thing. So the
And they're not
need
trying to be necessarily. Yeah, yeah.
exactly the need for dedicated pages for what you're doing is key, and somebody needs to do it. I don't know if anyone's got the 90s BMX or the 80s, and somebody, because obviously
You,
the further back in time you go, the
you
less.
know, mid BMX. Yeah, I don't. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, man.
You're good.
Mid school BMX. He posts a lot of 90s stuff, and I do too. I'm not just pigeonholed to early 2000s. That's my main thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw clips from the 90s in there and stuff. It's all nostalgia BMX. I'm not like posting necessarily like Bob Haro videos from 1980, but like I'll post
Yeah.
some stuff from the 90s and even mid 2000s, but early 2000s is just kind of like essentially what it's about. But you're right. The dedicated page to 80s BMX. I'm sure there is one.
Probably.
So it'd be
the
cool to
more
see.
the more this stuff grows, the more younger people and older guys, just people in general, are going to be exposed to it and are going to get psyched on it. And maybe part of that is why breaks are coming back this year.
Yeah, we were talking about that when I interviewed you because at the time Chase Hawk had just put brakes on, and Larry Egger had thrown a straight cable on. He doesn't
Yeah,
have them
who
on
called
anymore,
it?
but yeah, it was cool. Yeah, you did. You definitely did. And cassettes and stuff. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so you definitely called it. And another thing is BMX, in a sense, has always followed skateboarding in one way or another. Not 100%, but
Hmm.
the skateboarders right now are seeing the 90s trend come back, and the early 2000s trend in skateboarding is coming back, like puffy shoes and baggier clothes, or some of them are going to be wearing tighter jeans again because that was cool in the mid 2000s. But it's all cycling back within skateboarding, and BMX kind of follows suit, whether it's on purpose or not. It's just kind of like we always are kind of at least parallel.
Hmm.
So I see like a lot of the trends of like dudes getting back, especially in skateboarding, are getting back to the nostalgia, like those giant, how Cyrus D3s are cool again, and the big DC shoes, and S just released all their big shoes again that weren't cool only a couple years ago. So you're seeing that in skateboarding, and BMX will follow suit in a sense in a lot of ways.
That's really interesting. And I mean, maybe it's a case of people are finally starting to realize that they can be themselves rather than like
Yeah,
trying to fit the mold.
yeah, totally. I definitely agree with that. Yeah, you're right, because you're getting more of that freestyle aspect of it. So you're getting like where dudes are seeing like they can go out and do their own path or whatever. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep. Are you good?
I'm just plugging my phone in. It's
Oh, okay.
make sure it's charging.
You,
There we go.
all
I had to
right.
move because I wasn't reaching the charger.
But yeah, dude, I'm just stoked to see the way things are going. The creativity side of things is coming back. The breaks are coming back. People are, I feel like, being themselves more and more and more, and it's just all good.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Like I like seeing the brakeless stuff, but it's cool to see like you said, like there's so many tricks with brakes that were people were missing out on, like hurricanes and stuff. Like look what Corey Martinez is doing again.
Yup.
It's like super sick to see because a lot of ways riders are limiting themselves in a lot of ways by not trying out brakes and stuff. I get it forces you to be more creative in some ways, but it's cool to see that dudes are putting brakes back on and doing a lot of tricks that were forgotten about. And think of how much brake tricks would have progressed if the trend never really happened. If kids kept their brakes on, we'd be
Oh
light years
man,
ahead of what's going
I'd be a pro.
on. Well, you are technically, but imagine like Garrett Reynolds if he put brakes on
Oh
and
my
just went hard.
dude, can
Yeah,
you
with the stuff he's doing on ledges.
imagine?
Yeah, see, I'm not saying he should. It's his creative right to do whatever he wants, but it would
Just
be if he put a straight cable on or something and just like went ham on coping tricks, the stuff he's doing off of ledges. Imagine what he'd be doing off of cope. He'd probably be doing 900 hurricanes and stuff, dude.
well, what I've been saying or what I said.
Like, I mean,
What's that?
I didn't say anything. I was just letting you
Oh,
talk.
okay. I was just gonna say, I've said for a while now, as soon as these flat ledge kids figure out that a street spine is a flat ledge, it is
Yeah,
over.
yeah. It's gonna be sick. They'll be able to push it to that. Hopefully they discover that they'll be like, hey, wait, if I put brakes on, just try some stuff out. Yeah, because it's like they can still do the flat ledge stuff with their current setup. Have brakes on and go do some stuff on the spine. And obviously, I'm being biased. I like brake tricks and stuff, but I'm not saying that they should do that. It's like
People can do whatever they
it's
want.
whatever they want to do. But yeah, obviously, I know you're not saying that either.
Yep, we just really want to see it happen. That's all.
No, I would love to see Garrett Reynolds go to Battle of Hastings with a straight cable on and have like
Oh my god.
just destroy a sub. I mean, I've seen him ride brakes. Actually, he used to come to the flow back in the day. Obviously, he was a little kid, but the stuff he was doing back then was phenomenal. He was doing like opposite foof the pedal 270, just dialed. Like he was killing it with brakes back then. So it'd be sick to see him come back with just brakes like for the hell of it and just destroy a sub box, dude. I mean, imagine what he could do. And there's not just him. A lot of those dudes.
Francis Castro, if you're watching this and listening right now, USL BMX contest. All the only old, or not only old, only pros who rode brakes back in the day riding brakes for a contest. That's what they have to put brakes on, and they can
That'd be
only do
sick, dude.
brake tricks.
Can you imagine? And a lot of them would probably keep their brakes on after that. I mean, I don't know, man. Like I remember when Chase Hawk posted his bike with brakes on it, he was like, "I don't know how long this is gonna last." That was like his photo with the brakes, and it's been like a year, and like,
Yep.
look what he's doing, man. Like he kills it. Obviously, brakes or no brakes, but he's landing in a manual around the bull corner to Fufanu.
Crazy.
It's just yeah. And imagine, I love watching like big Fufanus and all that stuff, huge wall slaps and stuff.
Yeah, it's just, Jeremy Ball said it best. All you have to do to go from having brakes to being brakeless is go like this. Just let go of your lever and put your hands
Yeah,
on the grips.
yeah, totally. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff, man. Yeah, I mean, just like I said, I don't know if that trend never happened. Imagine where we would be at with brake tricks right now.
Who knows,
It'd be
man?
unreal. I mean, I know you're definitely pushing that, and there's a lot of dudes that are. But I mean, imagine if like it was a collective thing. Like it'd be crazy to see the stuff that was going to.
Yeah. I just thought of somebody. You should You should talk, see if Trevor wants to do anything on your like talk or anything.
Trevor, which
Watching
one? Trevor Gay? Oh, okay.
from Ohio, because everybody says that Trevor is everyone's favorite '90s rider.
Yeah, yeah. I posted some stuff of him, right? He rides for Standard, right?
I don't know. He
Is it?
doesn't ride
No,
for
that's a
them.
different dude. Okay, yeah. Actually, I'll have to look him up.
Front brakes. He's normally he's waiting on a frame to get done, but normally he has a platform on his bike.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Never mind. He rides Changa too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I know who you're talking about. Sorry, I was mixing up with somebody else. Yeah, that kid shreds. He follows the page. I've commented on stuff before. Yeah, he kills it, dude.
and everybody says he's their favorite '90s rider because he was born in the '90s.
Yeah, that's funny. I get. Yeah, that's hilarious, man.
He'd be a good person just because he's got such a good perspective on these things as well, and he's so like well read on his videos and the things that have happened and the things and his goals even for tricks he wants to do. Like he knows things that he wants to do, and just even the tricks that he's done is worth talking about. Like he did the 5 tap decade. He did the nose pick whip half bar thing that Osato did. He's done. There's so many just wild ones that he's done.
Yeah, it'd be sick to talk to him for sure. I'll have to actually DM you. We'll line that up. I think it'd be sick. But yeah, yeah. See, that's another example. And I don't know where he got his inspiration from. Maybe from that Changa scene, some of those dudes back in the day. But
He didn't
he
even
was
start
obviously not in
riding
that
until
scene.
2013, I think.
So what? That's what I'm saying. But was he influenced by like older riders that had ridden those
I
brakes
don't
and stuff, or
think
he just was like, I
locally.
wanted to do front brakes on?
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think it was locally. I think it was more like just. I can't speak for him, but I don't think it was locally.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's rad. Yeah, it's a good example, man. And yeah, it's just crazy to see, man. And like a lot of people discount that, like, a lot of people think that the early 2000s BMX, like, that scene's gone, but dude, there's so many dudes on the page that are still so into it that it's like, as long as those dudes are still stoked on it, it still exists in a sense. That's what,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not a time period, but it's like a niche of riding in itself. So it's like those dudes will be like, "Oh, BMX doesn't like this anymore. It's not like this anymore." And not everybody hates on current BMX that likes
Right.
early 2000s BMX or anything. Not at all. But most people are very stoked on it. But those dudes are still riding, like, or they're into riding, or they follow riding. So it's like, it's still the same in a lot of ways. It's still, those dudes are still out there. They just don't realize it because maybe the internet wasn't highlighting them anymore. And that's kind of why I wanted to give a platform to people that are still into that aspect of riding, whether it's collecting bikes and whether they were a filmer or a photographer or TM or anything. You know what I mean? It's just cool to talk to anybody that's still or was a part of that.
Yeah, and anyone involved with BMX media, if you haven't, open your eyes because there's clearly a need and want for it. With how many people follow these pages and get psyched on it, I know RBMX posts some throwback stuff quite a lot. I'm
Which is
sure.
dope. Yeah, they're awesome.
I'm
And they
sure
share my stuff too, which is cool.
that
Yeah, they'll
is
share some
cool.
of my posts, which is awesome. Yeah, and they'll share, the other mid school pages and stuff, which is rad.
That is awesome. Coming coming in full force, man. I am stoked for it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Likewise, I love seeing your channel growing. It was at 10,000 and I interviewed you, and now you've gone up about 7,000 followers already. So it's pretty crazy, and not even a year.
Wow, it feels
So
like
yeah, you're making moves.
a long time ago that we did that. That's crazy.
It wasn't even a year ago. Sorry, I have to pick up my phone because I didn't have a chance to charge my phone. But
You're
yeah.
good.
So
I think maybe we better burn out before we fade out on this one because
yeah,
I feel like we've had a really good
yeah, I
conversation.
went all over the place.
What's up?
Yeah, I agree, man. I said, yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like we kind of went all over the place, but it's cool.
It's been a really good one and we need to do it again, and I would rather end it while it was really awesome than let it die out and fade out.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I feel you. From coming from the live streams, I try to do the same thing. So
So I'm going to type on the screen right now the the Instagram handle for everyone to go and
I
follow.
appreciate it.
2000s BMX. Exactly like that. Boom.
Yeah, early 2000s BMX. If you guys want to check it out, and
There it
if you guys
is.
collect or tag me in any old photos, I'll try to repost them. to the story or whatever. So
Yeah, you do a really good job
appreciate
of
it.
that too. You repost so much stuff from so many people, and it's awesome. And if you aren't
Yeah, I
following
love
this
seeing it.
page, follow it.
Appreciate it, Brent.
All right, man. I will talk to you, and everybody check his stuff out. Thanks for tuning in.